together with people who we might not choose as friends, right? Like we have to live with these people, aunts and uncles and cousins and all kinds of family member. It's the one time you get together and you think to yourself, my goodness, if these people weren't my relatives, there's not a chance in the world that I'd be hanging out with these people. I don't like them. And so what happens is we find ourselves in these holiday settings full of conflict. I mean, it's not just the people that we're with. It's the financial stresses. It's the hustle and bustle. I don't know if anybody was over at the mall on Friday or yesterday. Anybody go Black Friday shopping? I mean, that was the test of my Christianity at the Saint Laurent Mall. The stresses that come along with the holiday season of shopping and finances and trying to fill a calendar with more and more stuff. And we get stressed out, and then we find ourselves in these settings where we either become cranky or we hang out with a bunch of cranks. We hang out with a bunch of people who are ready just to tear our heads off. And it seems that Christmas, that's supposed to be this season that's full of joy and peace, and it can turn into this place where it's just nothing more than conflict. It's interesting, the very first Christmas must have had lots of conflict. I've been thinking about this week. You think about people in the community. People hearing the story about a virgin birth. I'm sure there were people making all kinds of snide remarks about Mary and Joseph. I'm sure that there was people treating them in a harsher type of way because they didn't believe the story that they had concocted in their minds. I'm sure that Mary's parents were trying to tell her to smarten up and just to confess her sins. Come on, Mary, this is ridiculous. Stop with the stories. There's no possible way that you can be pregnant without having sex. This is impossible. And I'm sure there was conflict in their home and even Joseph's home. I'm sure that his parents were saying, listen, it would be so better for you just to put her away and go marry somebody else. You know, Sarah, just down the street, she would be a fine young lady. And the little bit of conflict there was all kinds of conflict. I don't know what it was like for Mary and Joseph. I know those of you who have a Catholic background, you see Mary as the saintly person. But friends, she was human just like us. And I know what it's like. Mary and Joseph are going into Jerusalem to pay their taxes to have the census, and Mary's like, well, Joseph, where are we staying tonight? Expedia went down, and I'm sure there's going to be something open. You mean you didn't book a place? Well, I'm sure, you know, they open up all kinds of homes at this time of the year because they got all kinds of travelers. You mean we don't know where we're staying? Mary, it's going to be fine. You're telling a pregnant woman it's going to be fine? You're telling a person who's had no sleep for the last 3 months, who's busting at the seams, you're telling somebody like me that it's going to be fine? I'm not sure what their conversation was like, but I guess there may have been a little bit of conflict. And then there's Herod. Herod's this individual who's so upset he's trying to kill baby Jesus because he found out that there's a new king in town. And he is upset and he is enraged. There's conflict all through the story. Friends, it seems like life just seems to always have conflict. Let me just give you a little secret. As long as you are human and you hang out with humans, there's a chance that there's going to be conflict. There is a chance that you're going to have conflict in your life. No matter what, it's not about the Christmas season. It's not about anything else. It's about the fact that we are human beings who get together with other human beings who are different from each other, and we have moments where we just don't know what to do. And there will always be conflict. What does God expect of us? What is it that he desires from us this Christmas as we get together with family members, as we find ourselves in some awkward situations, as we get together with people we haven't seen for a while, and we know that every time we get together with them, things just turn sour? Well, Matthew chapter 5, verse 9 says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God." Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. As children of God, God wants us to be peacemakers this Christmas. He doesn't want us being the cranks. He wants us to be the peacemakers who show up in the crank's home. He wants us to be the ones who, when we step into somebody's home or when people step into our home, that people go, they seem to have an ability to bring peace to what would normally be a situation of conflict. Peacemakers. But you're sitting there and you go, okay, I can understand that. I can accept that I'm supposed to be a peacemaker. But what do I need to do? What are the practicals that I need to provide in my life so that I can bring peace to the situations I'm about to go into this Christmas. So I want to walk you through 4 verses very quickly this morning about being peacemakers. In order to be a peacemaker, first of all, we need to respond properly. Respond properly. If you're taking notes, just write that down. Respond properly. In Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1, it says this: "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." A gentle word turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Friends, the power of your words will either help the conflict or it will escalate the conflict. If you bring a gentle word to some of the situations that you're going into, you have the ability to make the conflict cease. But if you use a harsh word instead of a gentle word, you have the ability to escalate the conflict. You see, there's not much doubt in my mind that you will go into places where conflict will be inevitable. But how you respond, the words that you use, will determine whether or not that conflict will keep going. This word, gentle, a gentle word, it means tender or with sensitivity. The word that we're supposed to use, this gentle word, we come into a situation, and you know what it's like. Maybe you've got a relative who says, "Nice sweater." And you want to say a nice face. You want to respond back. Maybe that's just the carnal Jeff Hillier. But someone insults you, and you just want to, or someone you've cooked all day, ladies. You've cooked all day, and someone goes, "This turkey's a little dry." Well, I'll show you what's dry. You want to respond in a negative way, and the Bible says that we're supposed to use a gentle word at the moment to respond properly. This idea of tenderness with sensitivity. A few years ago, I was at a youth retreat, and we were playing broom ball this one day. I absolutely love broom ball. I think that I'm a pretty godly and kind man, except when it comes to some sports. And I love broom ball because you don't need to have a lot of skill. You just need to be willing to hit people. And so we were there, and we were out there playing at Muskoka Woods, Mediba Camp. And I'm going along, and it's great because there's snowbanks everywhere, so you can deck people, and they go flying in the snow, and you don't actually do severe damage. My buddy Clark, though, was the youth pastor at the time, and this was before he had lost about 60 pounds, and he was a stocky guy, and I was used to it when I was younger. I'd take on my youth leader who was like 200 and like probably 30 pounds, 6'2". I'd come into him when we were playing ball hockey and hit him so hard, and no problems at all. But I realize I'm getting older, and so my bones are a little bit more fragile, and so I was coming in, and there was Clark, and we were both going for the ball, and I came into him full force, and I hit him with the side of my body, and all of a sudden I heard crack, 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 crack. All the ribs just cracked as soon as I hit him. And I went, that hurts. But I'm a guy, and so instead of being sensible and going to sit down, I continue to play hockey, or broom ball. And so now I'm in severe pain, like the most severe pain I've been in a long, long time. And I'm moving the stick, and every time I move the stick, I can feel the pain. And every time, every now, when I want to go hit somebody, I back off. And I'm in this excruciating pain, and so I play a little bit longer, and then I go down to my room, and I begin to realize that these cracked ribs are causing pain that I've never experienced before. And now every time I move my arm, I'm feeling the pain. And even as I'm breathing, I'm feeling the pain. If you've ever cracked your ribs, you know that if you have a cough, it's not good. Because as you cough, you push your chest forward, and now I'm coughing, and I'm feeling the pain. And I'm thinking to myself, I've got to preach tonight. And you guys know me. I'm a walker. I use my hands. I'd be a good Italian. I'm demonstrative, and that's the way I preach. And so I'm thinking, I've got to do this tonight. And so I find myself standing in front of the teens that night, and I've got these broken ribs, and now I'm having to move very, very slowly, and I'm having to watch every action that I have because I've got incredible pain. Over the next month, this pain had lasted. And I realized that I had to keep doing the same actions I had done before, but I had to do them with utmost sensitivity. It wasn't that I could keep the same shirt on every day. That would be gross. And so I had to take my shirt off my body, and I had to be very slow as I would take off my shirt because the pain was so intense, and I would lift up my shirt and slowly take it off. And then I would have to grab my new shirt, and I would slowly put it on with great tenderness because of the pain. Every action took a little bit more time. Every action took a little bit more sensitivity. The same actions, just a little bit more sensitivity. And the writer of Proverbs is talking in this type of manner. He says that when you come into a place of conflict, you need to treat the situation as if it's a painful situation and provide a little bit more sensitivity, a little bit more time with your words. It doesn't mean that you can't confront somebody. It doesn't mean that you can't speak truth. But what it's saying is that you are in a delicate situation like cracked ribs, and you've got to take your time. You've got to take your time and the sensitivity with the actions and the words that you're about to use, or else you're going to cause greater damage. Greater damage. The writer of Proverbs says we need to use gentle words. That person says something to you. Hey, Jeff, what kind of gift is this? And I want to say the harsh word. But the Bible tells me I'm supposed to use a gentle word. And I think if I say the harsh word, I'm going to cause more damage to the ribs. I got to be extra sensitive. I might say, you always say this. You always do this. You're such and such. You did this. You offended me. And I can just shoot it out. Or I can watch my words with incredible sensitivity and say, you know, when you say those type of things, you may not like the gift, but I really did take a lot of time choosing it. I didn't realize you wouldn't like it, and I'm sorry about that. And we can respond and we can speak truth, but the Bible tells us that we have got to respond properly, friends. Your words need to be used with gentleness. Your words need to be used with sensitivity. You need to be careful what comes out of your mouth this Christmas, because you will either cause the situation to escalate or you'll bring complete calm to the situation. I don't know if any of you have this situation, but is there anybody in the place who would just be honest and say, you know, my daughter is just like me, or my son's just like me? Anybody? You've got a child that's just like you? Yeah, some of you are lying. I just can't believe how many liars we have here. My son Bailey is just like me. And I remember when Ainsley and I got married, we said we're going to have the most stubborn kids in the world because we are incredibly stubborn people. And I got to tell you, I try to live a godly life. But I've had moments where Bailey and I have gone head to head. He's done something to me, and we've got an incredibly close relationship. We have a great relationship. But we've just had these moments where we've gone head to head, and he does something that makes me upset. And instead of thinking about the gentle words, instead of using extra sensitivity, I immediately go, what do you mean you did this? Bailey, get down here. I want to talk to you. And I'll just start barking at him. And he all of a sudden gets defensive, and he starts barking at me. And Ainsley will sit back, and she'll watch these two people who are exactly alike go head to head. Then I'll back off, and then Ainsley will step in. And she'll use very gentle words. Bailey, can I just talk to you for a second? Listen, I understand your perspective. But I want to tell you why your dad's so upset. And she has this ability to step into his life and be able to use the very thing that Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1 says. And all of a sudden, the situation's dealt with because there's incredible sensitivity. I keep trying to learn from her. I think I'm getting better. I hope I'm getting better. But I realize that she has the success with him dealing with the situation and I don't, because I do the second half of this verse and I just harshly speak. Friends, some of the conflict that comes into your homes is because we simply harshly speak. We need to learn to be gentle. We need to learn to hold back on our emotions. We need to think twice before we speak out those words. The Bible tells us that we need to respond properly. The second thing we need to do if we want to be a peacemaker is we need to speak life. Look at verse 4. It says, Proverbs 15, verse 4 says, the tongue that brings healing is a tree of life, but a deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. You have the ability to either bring life to somebody or absolutely crush them. Absolutely crush them. Make them feel awful. This word healing, a healing tree of life, is this word in the Hebrew that's marpe. It means healing or to cure health. And what the writer of Proverbs is talking about is that we have the potential to speak words that will cause someone to be like a tree of life, where vitality will come out of them. You speak into somebody's life something so positive, and all of a sudden you start to see that there's vitality in that person. But you speak words that are harsh, You speak words that are deceptive. You speak words that rob people of life, and all of a sudden you've crushed their spirit. The idea that the writer of Proverbs is talking about is this idea of planting seeds. It's this idea that you will either plant positive seeds into somebody's life or negative seeds. Friends, there are times you will come into homes. Your kids will come home. You'll be in these situations. Maybe even you and your spouse, and you are feeling something inside. You just want to let it out. You just want to speak it out. And the writer of Proverbs says that we need to bring words of life so we can plant the trees of life. And so that means we need to drop some seeds that are going to be life-giving seeds. And so rather than always picking on the negatives, always picking on the things that are going wrong, we need to find in the people around us seeds that will allow us to be, or positive things that will allow us to plant seeds of life. Seeds of life. You need to plant seeds of life in your kids. You need to plant seeds of life in your spouses. By the way, husbands and wives, those of you who find that you have kind of grown cold to one another, that you found that there's been some conflict, you find that you're butting heads and maybe there's not that the romance that was there, maybe you need to start speaking some new words of life. Maybe you need to start planting some new seeds of life that will cause some vitality in your spouse. Now, I'm not talking about just random stuff, nice shirt. I'm talking about you speak life that says, hey, I love you. This is what I think about you. This is what you mean to me. Some of us need to speak this into our kids. We need to plant seeds of life that we would say to them, you are the greatest son. You are the greatest daughter. Every time you do this, I'm so proud of you. You make me smile because of. And we begin to speak life into them. And this is what happens. We walk into situations where there's a potential for conflict. And as we plant seeds of life, all of a sudden the person who we have the potential to be in conflict with, they don't know what to do with what we've just planted in their life. And they respond back so positively. You watch a person that you speak positively to, they'll respond back positively. But a person that you speak harshly to, they'll respond back harshly. They'll respond back in a negative way. And the writer of Proverbs talks about planting good seeds. Let me just give you a line that I heard many years ago. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. Those individuals in your family, in your workplace, and the people that you come into conflict with, if they have been constantly hurt by words that have been negative, words of death, they are going to inevitably hurt you. And some of the people that you come into conflict with are people who are not unkind, they're not evil, they've just been hurt. But friends, if you would take those hurt people and you would begin to sow some seeds of life, if you would begin to speak some things into them that would be so positive, you would see their demeanor change around. You would see that young man, that son who's always hitting heads with you, you would see him begin to respond more softly because all he's ever been used to is being hurt. And now you're speaking words of life. Words of life. I remember this one moment we were at a soccer field. Bailey had been playing in this league. It was an early morning game. It was an indoor league for Darlington. And there was this one father on the team who just, I just kept watching him be critical of his son. He'd always just, all those negative seeds, all the seeds, no matter what the kid did good, he would always just say the negatives. And this one game, Bailey had a hot game, and he had scored a number of goals. He was just outstanding. I think he had just dyed his hair blue, and that helped. I don't know. But he had this great game, and so the game ended, and we had won, and so the parents and the kids are coming around the top of this mezzanine that overlooked the field. And this father looks at his son. I watched it. He had his arm around his son, and he says, son, I can't remember the kid's name, but he says, hey, son, why can't you play more like Bailey? And in that moment, as proud of my son as I was devastated for this young boy. And I watched the boy take his hand off of his dad's hand off his shoulders, push away from his dad, and begin to walk on. And there was this conflict moment that was evident to everybody simply because the dad was only planting seeds that were harsh, seeds of death instead of seeds of life. I remember talking to one of my friends, one of the other parents, and we said, if that continues on, that boy will never have a relationship with his dad. Friends, please listen to me. Some of the conflict in our lives are because we've only spoken the harsh words. We think we're proclaiming truth. There are people around us who need to hear words of life. They need to hear how good they are. They need to see what Jesus sees in them. They need you to speak it out, and it may be awkward for you to say those words to somebody, but I'm telling you that when someone speaks a word of life over your life, it changes everything inside. All it takes is someone to say something so positively to you, and you feel like $1 million. I walk out the back, and if someone says, "That was so good, Pastor," I feel good, and the next person says, "That was so good, but," and they begin to tell me everything I did wrong. This doesn't happen a whole lot. But all I remember is the negative. And for some people in our families and in our lives, all they're remembering is the negatives. All they're remembering is the negatives. They're just constantly hearing the criticisms, the things that they're doing wrong, the things that they can't accomplish. And we come even into our extended family, and we may not be there on a regular basis, but their lives are full of nothing but the negative words. And for you to step into that home, into your mother's home, or to your aunt's home, or to your son's home, and to speak words of life, you will watch the atmosphere change. We need to speak words of life. So if we're going to be peacemakers, we need to respond properly. Secondly, we need to speak words of life. Now let's just flip over to Colossians chapter 3. I want to take you to the next 2 points, and they're found right here. The third thing that we need to do is we need to show patience. This is going to be so good. And church family, I hope you gravitate towards this morning, because this will guide our church for the future. Colossians chapter 3, verse 13 says, "Bear with each other." Bear with each other. Paul's speaking to the Colossian church about what it means to be a Christian, what it means to actually be a Christian. He realizes that Christianity is not about just saying a prayer at the altar. It's about a lifestyle that we live. And he begins to talk to them about what they're supposed to do. He talks to them about showing compassion and humility and gentleness and patience. And he talks about clothing themselves in Christ. And then he gets really practical, and he says, "Hey, I want you to bear with one another." I want you guys to actually bear with one another. Well, what's he saying? Are you ready? He's saying that there are going to be people around you who are going to irritate you. I know, we're Christians. We don't get irritated. I got irritated at the Saint Laurent Mall. He knows there's going to be people who are going to irritate you. There are people that irritate me. And if you would be, Jeremy Lee Long just went, "Oh." There are people that irritate you, and there are people that irritate me. You get together with them, ugh. It's like the demons just kind of imbibe in you at that moment. I'm just going to spin my head around because that person irritates me so much. He says, I want you to bear with one another, because there's going to be people who offend you, people who say things to you. There are going to be people who hurt you. There are going to be people who frustrate the life out of you. Let me just encourage you, friends. As long as you're in this church, you're going to be sitting with people who are going to irritate you. You're going to be sitting with people who are going to offend you. You're going to be sitting with people who hurt you. You're going to be sitting with people who are incredibly awkward. You're going to be sitting with people who do things that make you upset. There are going to be people who every time you see them, you're going to go, ugh. And they're in here, and they're in your homes, and they're in your extended family, and they're at your workplace. There are people that are going to irritate you. And Paul, in the midst of talking about what it means to be a Christian, he says, I want you to bear with them. I want you to bear with them. And what this means is to endure and to tolerate. Friends, let me tell you something. You need to endure the people who irritate you. You need to tolerate the people that irritate you. There are times that somebody comes to me, they irritate me to no end, and I just stand there smiling. Now you're going to meet me in the foyer. I think he's smiling a lot right now. Paul's looking for this long-term investment into one another. And he is saying that if we're truly going to be Christians, that we have to endure with one another, that there are going to be people who irritate us, and some of us just want to write them off, and we just want to tell them the way it is. And he says, no, I want you to endure them. I want you to be patient with these people. I want you to be patient with people who offend you. I want you to be patient with people who hurt you. I want you to be patient with people who irritate you. I want you to be patient with them. I want you to be patient with them. I've been around enough people that it's hard to be patient with. But we need to be patient. Let me just tell you this. Your Christianity is not manifest until there's a problem. Did you get that? You see, if everything's good, you don't need to really live out things. If people treat you so well, it's easy to be a Christian. But the moment that person says something that ticks you off, the moment that person insults you, the moment that person lets you down, the moment that person hurts you, that's the moment your Christianity gets a chance to be revealed. That's it. And Paul's saying to the church of Colossus, he says, you need to bear with one another. I'll never forget a Christmas moment in our household. My mom, we lived in this little apartment, 416 Totten Road. This little apartment, and we were going to host the family dinner. We had barely anything. We had a small apartment. And so my grandma and my aunt and my uncle and my cousins were going to come over. This big family moment. My mom had been working like crazy to make sure this meal was good. And as my family comes in through the front door, something happens. That my mom hits the plate where all the gravy's on it. And the gravy goes flying off the stove and all over the floor. Turkey dinner without gravy. And all of a sudden, my mom's upset, and she starts cleaning it up, and she begins to tell our family that she has spilt the gravy. One of my relatives begins to react in a very negative way. He goes, I can't believe it. We're not going to have any gravy for the turkey? This is awful. All she does is begin to criticize the moment, begins to heap on these negative words of my mom. And here's my mom cleaning up the gravy, and she begins to cry, and she says, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And this relative gives her a few more lines full of anger, and then finally just kind of backs off, doesn't say a whole lot. Well, I'm just a kid. I'll tell you what's going on inside of me. I'm angry. I want to take my relative out. I really do. I'm just being honest. I want to tell her the way it is. I want to take her hair and wipe the floor with her hair. I am just upset. Because she's angered me. My mom has been cooking all morning and she accidentally drops the gravy. We all know it's not a good situation, but here's my mom in tears, and my relative has said this, and I just want to tell her the way it is. I am angry towards this relative. And the day goes on, and we have turkey dinner, and we hang out for a little while, and then everybody leaves. As soon as everybody leaves, I go to my mom, and I said, Mom, I'm so angry with so-and-so. I said, I can't believe it. You've been cooking all morning. You've been preparing everything, and you accidentally spilled the gravy. And Mom, you apologized for it. You were crying when you said it. Mom, you didn't have to. You should have told her off. My mom said, you know what, Jeff? It wouldn't have done any good. It wouldn't have done any good. I just wanted to keep peace in the family. And in that moment, I realized something. That she was willing to bear with this bad, irritating situation. She was willing to endure for the sake of the day. And there are so many moments we'll find ourselves in like that, where it's easy for the emotions to get high, the emotions to spring out of our lives. And God wants us to simply endure with those people. The truth of the matter is we're only going to see them 2 or 3 times a year, for many of them. Friends, we need to learn to bear with one another. It's interesting, this idea of patience. The word patient is an individual who has gone through some pain and finds themselves needing to be cured. It's interesting that when you have a disease or a sickness, it doesn't get cured right away. The people who step into the doors of the Ottawa General Hospital, the patient, they don't step in the doors and all of a sudden they are fixed. No, they've got the pain. And for some of them, it takes a short period of time. It might be a week. They just may need to be hooked up to an IV and have the right drugs administered to them. But they're going through this pain for a certain season. They have to endure with the pain until they get better. And for some of them, it takes a lot longer. It may be long-term care. This idea of patience is dealing with pain calmly for the short or the long haul. It's this idea of us becoming the patient. Us dealing with the pain because we believe that at some point the situation will get better. It will get better. Please listen. Some of your family members are going to be short-termers. They're just going to need a short time before they get healthy. But friends, some of you've got family members that are long-termers. That you're going to have to calmly deal with the pain over a much longer period of time. You're in for the long haul. And Paul is saying to you that you need to be patient. You need to become the patient, calmly dealing with the pain in belief that God will someday make it better. be patient with those around you. Be patient with people in here. Friends, be patient with people in here. Be patient with people in here. Be patient with people in here. Be patient with people in your homes. Be patient with people in your families. Be patient. And so, not only are we to be patient, but lastly, we are to generously forgive. Generously forgive. Look at this, Colossians chapter 3, verse 13 and 14. It says, bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. This idea of forgiveness is a difficult one. Some of you have faced some pretty difficult things. People who've hurt you in your life. The problem with forgiveness is that if we don't truly do it, we hold on to it, it becomes anger, and then anger becomes bitterness. And I want to share this with you. Some of the conflict that you're about to go into some of the homes is not an issue of the other person, it's an issue of you. It's an issue of unforgiveness towards the people you're about to meet. You see, what happens is we get hurt by somebody, and so they've done something to us. They said, Jeff, you've got big ears, which is true. I do have big ears. And so we have this offense that happens, and we write the offense down on the slate for their life. And this is Christmas from 1984, and somebody in my family they've said this word, and now they've offended me. And I'm trying to deal with it. I'm trying to be godlike. I'm trying to be patient with them. And you can tell the conflict in the moment. You can tell there's an awkwardness, and we might say bye at the end of the night, and like everything's fine. But I go home and I brew upon it. What do they mean that I have big ears? Well, what was that about? Have they seen their nose? And I start going through stuff in my mind. And I'm going over it. And then I come to church and I begin to hear a message about forgiveness, and I think to myself, you know what, I'm going to forgive them. It's okay. Everything's fine. But what happens is I don't take it off the board. I convince myself everything's okay, but I haven't erased the slate, because, friends, forgiveness is about erasing the act that's done against us. It's about clearing it as if it never happened. And so what happens is I take this board and I carry it around all year long. I walk all through the year with this board that there's an offense that's happened to me. Everything's fine. Everything's good. I'm good. There's no problem. I forgave that person, but I've never taken it off the board. Never taken it off the board. Now next Christmas happens December 1985. And I arrive at the house of this person who offended me in 1984. And I've got the board with me. They haven't done anything to me in 1985, but I got it still on the board. And now there's this tension in the room. I mean, it happened in 1984, but there's this tension in the room because I've never cleaned the slate. And now we're talking, and I can't figure out why there's such conflict. That person always brings conflict into the room. The issue's not them, it's me. It's this unforgiveness in my heart. And then what happens is they insult my wife's turkey. Got another offense. And I'm like, well, she's the one who cooked. She's the one who did all the work. She's the one who made all the provisions. And I say a few things. I try to be Christ-like, but inside I'm angry again. And I try to get through the day. I try to get through the moment. The day ends. Everybody leaves. And I take the board with me. And I begin to walk through life with this board with this stuff, these offenses that are against this person. And every time I think about them, I think negative thoughts. I'll tell you how you know whether or not you've forgiven somebody is every single time you think of them, whether or not your thoughts are positive or negative. If your thoughts are evil or harsh, I'm telling you, you haven't dealt with it. And so you carry it around, and now maybe it's the next Easter meal, and you arrive at the house, and there's this tension in the room. They haven't even done anything, but friends, look at this. You've got the board. And there's offenses on the board. And you tell yourself everything's okay, but you keep remembering they told me I had big ears. They insulted my wife's turkey. Do you remember when they did this? And you have these memory fests of all the things that they've done because you keep holding on to the offense. Paul says to the church that we need to generously forgive. And someone says that my wife's turkey is dry, first of all, they're wrong. Secondly, I erase it. They told me I have big ears. I do. I erase it. And at the end of the day, I don't even remember what they said. I let it go. I ask God by his strength, the Spirit by his power, to help me to let it go, because those things do hurt, but I've got to let them go. And at the end of the day, I choose to stop remembering them. I choose to stop going over the story. I choose to stop going over the words that were spoken. And at the end of that Christmas gathering, I take the board that's blank, and I walk around with this blank board, this board that has no offenses. And now, every time I see them, everything's fine, because it's like meeting somebody for the first time. Whenever you meet somebody for the first time, there's nothing on the slate against them. You're willing to engage in them. Some of the people that we're trying to engage with, the reason why there's conflict is because we're carrying around boards that have all kinds of offenses on them. We're carrying around boards that need to be wiped clean. Friends, let me just tell you something. Paul doesn't just go, you know what, it's a good idea to forgive people. It's a good idea to just erase those things. He says that we are to forgive. We are to forgive the way that Christ forgave us. Oh, I've hated people. I've been greedy. I've gossiped. I think that's double P. I've lied to my mom when I was 5. I've insulted people. I've been callous. I've been dishonoring to God. Got angry. I've filled a board full of sins. When I come before God, he says, Jeff, I don't see it. I don't see it. God, remember when I lied when I was 5? No, I don't. Your board is clean. God, do you remember? You remember when I gossiped? No, Jeff, I don't remember. God, do you remember when I was angry, I lost my cool? No, Jeff, your board's clean. How's that possible, God? Because Jesus paid the price so that it would be clean. Because Jesus paid the price. He was willing to take the greatest amount of pain so that your slate could be clean. And Paul steps into our lives and he says that we're going to face moments where we can fill our board with the things that other people have done. But he says, remember what God has done for you. He says, remember that God has generously stood by your board and erased it so that it's always clean. So there is no conflict. So there is no enmity. So there is no division between us and God. God is constantly standing in your life with an eraser because of the blood of Jesus. All we need to do is confess our sins and turn from them, and the board is made clean. And I step into my prayer time with God, and there's not this awkwardness, there's not this tension, there's not this conflict, there's this intimacy because we have a clean board. Friends, that's what he's telling you need to do for others. You need to do that for others. You need to be as generous with your forgiveness as God's been with you. I know there's been people who've hurt you badly. I know there's been people who have said things and they keep saying things. But friends, you keep doing things to God too. And yet he's willing to forgive you. Do you know that some of us don't even understand the conflict that happens in a situation because there are things that have got so deep in our lives we don't even know they're there anymore? I had this student when I was youth pastoring, and one day I must have done something to upset him, and from that point on he kept trying to hurt me. This literally happened. I remember we were playing baseball. I'm running from first base to second. He doesn't even have the ball, but he says, I'm going to take you out. He's standing there, and I have to run way off the baseline. So that I don't get taken out by this teenager in our group. And then he starts getting angry that I ran off the baseline. He said, but you're going to kill me. We're in the gymnasium playing soccer, and I steal the ball from him, and the next thing I know, he comes flying at me and decks me. I mean, he just kept trying to hurt me, and every time I'd say something, he had this chip on his shoulder. One youth night, we're having problems with him, and I keep trying to move him and this other kid. And so finally I asked this kid to leave our youth room, and I want to talk to him. So we're out in the foyer, and I said, hey, listen, tell me something. I said, have I upset you? Have I hurt you? Have I done something to offend you? And he says, yes. I said, that's why you keep responding to me so negatively? He said, yep. I said, please tell me what I've done. Please tell me what I've done to offend you so we can get on with this. He says, you know what? I can't remember. I said, what? He says, you did something that hurt me badly, but I can't remember what it is. And I looked at him and I said, but we can never move forward because what I did in the past is so deep inside of you that you're responding to me negatively. Every time we get together, you're harsh with me. Every time we get together and play sports, you try to take me out. Every time we get together, you say things that are so negative towards me because of something that I did in the past, and you can't remember what it is. Be truthful here for a second. Some of us are hurting people around us because they've done something in the past that we can't even remember anymore. We can't. Friends, Jesus is saying to us today through the words of Paul that we need to generously forgive. We need to search our hearts and say, God, that person, have they done something so deep in my life that I can't even remember what it is, but I know I'm holding on to it? God, can I release this person from the offense? Can I erase it so the next time I see it, I don't even think about the words they shared. I don't even think about the act. I'm going to erase it. You'd say, Pastor, I want to do that, but it's so hard. Yeah, I know. We die to self. There has to be death for forgiveness to take place. We have to die to ourselves just like Jesus died for us. We need to practice generous forgiveness. So this Christmas, we're going to get together with people who will make us cranky. We have the opportunity to either be a Christian or a crank. A Christian or a crank. Conflict is inevitable. No matter how good our families are, there will be somebody in our lives who will cause a moment of potential conflict. But God's calling you to respond properly. He's calling you to speak words of life. He is calling you to bear with one another, endure patiently. And friends, he's calling you to forgive with incredible generosity. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? Christian or the crank? Your Christianity will be revealed more than in this place when you step out there and get together with people who put pressure on your lives. How will you respond this Christmas? I want you just to bow your heads and close your eyes just for a sec. We're going to give a salvation call, and then we'll be done right on time. But I want you just to check your heart and just say, God, are there some things in my heart that maybe I've held on to? Are there some ways that I've responded that maybe haven't been positive? Do I have a tendency to speak harsh words or life-giving words? God, am I patient with those around me? Do I exercise the same patience that I would require them to show with me? God, is there unforgiveness in my heart? Just take a few seconds and search your heart right now. Everybody's head bowed and eyes closed. Just let me ask this question. Maybe we could have a couple of altar workers just prepare themselves. You're in this place and you can't believe that God would clean your slate. Man, you need it. You need it. You feel far from God and there's a conflict between you and him. I want you to know this morning that he made the way so the conflict would cease. He provided forgiveness through the blood of Jesus Christ. And he wants to come into your life and be the Lord and God over you. If you're here in this place, say, Pastor, I've never given my life to Jesus, but I'd like to do that this morning. Would you just raise your hand? No one's looking around, just you and me. Quickly raise your hand. Or anyone? All right, if you're feeling that prompted but haven't raised your hand, I really encourage you to come and see me after the service. Friends, if you need to find a spot at this altar, maybe God's really spoken to you, maybe there's some things that you just need to deal with, I really encourage you to find a spot here at the end of the service. We're going to close in just a second. But if you need to, if you want someone to pray for you, we'll have people at the front who can pray for you. But if you just want to kneel down somewhere at the front, that will be the sign that we know not to pray for you. Just if you just want to get alone with God, I just encourage you to find a spot and allow him to work through you. Let's pray as we close this service. Father, I thank you that none of us have arrived. We keep learning the same lessons. Your patience with us is incredible. God, there are times that we don't respond properly. There are times that we don't speak words of life. There are times that we don't